bunch of people came by, like we were saying. Paul Cox worked there. Deen was coming every year and working. There was a whole bunch of other shops sprouted up in Brooklyn. This guy Steg and his friend Don opened a little bike shop over there, and they were doing Harleys. And then they kind of fell out because everybody fell out. And then Steg came over to Avenue C and he opened a little shop, and he got Larry out of rehab and took him up to this shop on Avenue C, and it was the tiniest little storefront, and it was this Jewish guy owned the building, and I was standing there the day they were renting them, and Larry's standing there with all these swastikas tattooed on him, and this old Jewish boy's talking to him. I was like, oh, this picture. Anyway, they rented the place and got it, and they squeezed a couple of motorcycles in there and started working. And that was a disaster. Steg kept coming by me and asking me for opinions and stuff like that, and I was like, well, drugs don't work very well, you know, if you're going to trust this guy, talking about Larry, as much as you invest in him is as much as you're going to lose. Anyway, Larry was lying on his couch and sobering up, and that shop was too small, so they moved down to Attorney Street. A friend of mine, Randy Hoffman, had a big workshop which he moved out, and then Psycho Cycles moved in there, and they blew up. They got a partner, this guy Frank, who came in, and he had all sorts of money. God knows where he got it from, but he pumped money in. The Snap-on truck was there every day. They got lifts, they got famous. They got Iron Horse magazine down there. Suddenly they were just like rock stars. Well, every deposit got spent on last month's rent and paying back this guy, and everything fucked up real quick, and they went out of business really, really quick. And I don't need to name names, but one of the guys had to leave town, and it was a fucking mess. At that point, I think Larry went down to Dream Machine, which was a big Harley custom shop down at the Holland Tunnel, and that lasted for a few years. And the guys from there eventually moved to Brooklyn and started Gasoline Alley, which is over on North 14th, or used to be over on North 14th. And those were the years when Larry became sober and did his best work. I'm sure you might all be familiar with the bikes that he built. A lot of beautiful things. And unfortunately, he died later in a motorcycle accident, which was a real shame.
Hey, Huey?
Yeah.
Who decided to start calling him Indian?
Well, after they made the Indian, it was Forster Larry to everybody. I think he did.
No, he didn't.
I think he just said, okay, I'm Indian Larry now.
He got tired of sports.
Well, he was Sportster Larry. He was really well known for Sportsters, and he would drag race them and build up the motors and do his thing with them. But once he got the Indian and built it, he became Indian Larry, sort of overnight. It was that was interesting, actually. That's a good question. That's a t-shirt question.
Hey, Huey, did you ever deal with Slick out in Williamsburg?
Slick, I never really had to deal with. He was a permanent fixture. He totally did Jap stuff, and any time there was a British bike, they figured out that he didn't really get into it, so they would come over the river to us. I mean, very nice man, and he had his scene going there. He had a whole building full of stuff, which I think's at Val's place now somehow. I don't know, she's probably got that pile now. But,
Surf shop.
yeah. Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
How apropos, and that's another thing about as things. It's funny you should mention. It's like actually the shop that had the most influence on me was John Psycho Center. John and Bobby pretty much taught me a lot of the stuff that I know. They were original dealers here. They sold Triumphs when they were new in the 70s. Great guys. John died eventually, and Bobby took over the shop and kept it going, so you can still go there. They're open Saturday mornings, and you can get a clutch cable for a Triumph, because they will actually have it on the shelf, whereas me, I'm going to have to order it and push it off and all the rest of it. So yeah, John Psycho Center gets the biggest shout. Next day air. Well, that's one of the things you learn about the business. Is I had a huge stock of stuff. Like I said, I had every kind of cable you could ever want to buy. I had like pistons for a Triumph 500, 20 over. Well, they sat there for 3 years because nobody came in needing a, so it was like, why was I tying all that money up in inventory and stuff? Just didn't make sense. And big note at this point as you go through the 90s was the computers came in and everything started to change. The idea of going up to swap meets every summer and doing all the rides with all the boys and buying a ton of shit and selling a ton of shit and bringing it back to the city and being the only game in town, that got snuffed out overnight. The minute the internet came on, it was suddenly, well, I can go online and get that on eBay, or I can order that, or I can this and that, and it just, the whole thing dissolved to shit after that, because, you know, as a shop owner, you couldn't compete. You know what I mean? They could get it from, you know, it's double-edged sword. It works for some people, it works, you know, if you're in the middle of Wichita and there's no bike shop and you need a part for an old Bonneville, you can get it on the web, and that's great for him. But if you're trying to create a nucleus and get people to come around you and do business with them and stuff, it's just totally anti everything that you want to do. So it really messes with your business, unless you want to make that your business and start being an eBay guy and selling all your shit online, which I don't particularly like doing.
Does it balance out though? In the end, is it still, you know, possible?
Well, it's horrible. I mean, you want to get a swinging arm for this Triumph, it's worth $20 in my basement. But if you've got the whole world bidding on that on eBay, and some asshole and another asshole want it, that suddenly is $200 or $250, and this is the rarest piece of shit you ever, you know. And that happens to everything, it really does. It's true, everything, you go out and buy something now for an old Triumph, it costs you a fortune, and it's mind-boggling because it's not worth it.
But don't you have a whole basement of that stuff?
It's all picked through, it's picked clean, it's gone. Really, what's down there is a scrap. There's a good question. That fucked us up real good. We got 5 feet of water in the basement, and I filled 5 Ford Econoline vans, you know, the Ford 350? Filled 5 vans with metal, all parts, wheel hubs, front ends, you name it, everything, crankcases, everything went in those trucks. The scrapyard was very happy, and the guys that humped it out of there were very happy. There was no stopping the tide coming in that day. That's for shit sure.
By the way, I always wanted to know, what was it? I've been in the basement, I've been on the main floor. What's above that?
Apartments, loft apartments.